Pat T is from San Diego, California. His home group is Big Book Awakening, and he will be speaking on being convinced for 30 minutes. Pat, thank you for sacrificing your time to share your life with us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you, everyone. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat. I'm an alcoholic. You know what? I see all these backgrounds with the Deep Down Within moniker in the background. You guys are putting on like the meeting of meetings. This is incredible. You guys got it all figured out. You're going, it's really good. You know what? I'm humbled, youngster, by what you were just saying. You know, when I look at we're going to talk about being convinced. I'm going to do it quickly because I cannot wait to hear from Young. Okay. But I want to touch on some things that are deep in my heart that I think God wants to bring to our attention. You know, the first thing I know is that when Bill and the gang designed this big book, it's a love story. And it's a love story from dramatically rescued souls to people that are desperate, hopeless, broken and alone without help. And that was definitely me. And this Alcoholics Anonymous, this volume, if I'll allow this volume to speak to me, it will take me from a place of hopelessness to extravagant joy. Because the promises in the big book is that we're not going to be a glum lot, that our lives are going to take on new purpose, and that we're going to be vital in people's lives. And the reason we're going to be vital in people's lives is we have been set free. And to get there, you know, I find it very interesting. You know, Doctor's Opinion's 8 pages long. The preface is a page, a little bit over a page. This forward to the first edition's a page or so. The forward to the second edition's a bunch of pages, my favorite forward of all the forwards. And then a page or so with forwards of third and fourth edition. But between the Doctor's Opinion of 8 pages and 60 pages of the text, starting out with Bill's story, going on to There's a Solution, going on to more about alcoholism, going on to We Agnostics, going on to how it works. 60 pages plus 8 of the Doctor's Opinion, 68 pages of the 103 pages of the primary text for how to do the step work is all on steps 1 and 2. And they're designed to take me from a place of no hope, sarcasm, criticalness, judginess. It'll never work for me. I'll never get what you got. I'll never be able to recover. It's not going to happen for me. I've tried everything for the last 11, 12, 15, 20 years. I've been in 5, 6, 8, 10 treatment, 15 treatment centers. Nothing works. Okay, end of the block. I'm at the last place. Nothing's working. What the heck? Somebody told me to read this with somebody that knows this big book, and then just maybe this thing will work. And so for the first 60 pages, they are so tender with me, but so direct. And they're saying to me, Pat, you don't understand how much poison is inside of you. I said, oh yeah, I do. I'm getting snakes crawling out of my skin. I'm slurring my speech. The doctors are telling me my liver's got hits. They're telling me if I don't quit. No, Pat. You don't understand. That's not the poison. That was your solution. Pat, the poison that's in you is your soul. It's full of soul sickness. And the Oxford group, who we owe our foundation to, is saying in the Oxford group methodology of how they went about helping people, including Roland Hazard, who ended up working with Ebby, who ended up working with Bill Wilson, who ended up giving us this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The story behind the story behind the story is this. Pat, you have soul sickness and you need soul surgery. And the interesting thing about soul surgery, which could only be done by God, not by another human, not by a group of drunks, not good orderly direction, not the meetings, not sponsorship, not service, only God himself, soul surgery, it has to start with identification. It has to start with confidence, is the word they use in Oxford Group. And it means I have to get to a place where I believe what the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous authors believe about their condition. And so we use this word, being convinced, which I think was Jung's idea behind this whole thing. It was brilliant. Being convinced. And maybe it was Tamara's too. I can't remember exactly how it all pulled up, but this is a brilliant conversation. Because the Big Book is saying, we're going to outline for you, Pat, the poison that we see in ourselves. Maybe you could see it in you. And so the way that they teach us to read the Big Book is out of the preface. And the preface says a couple things. Hey, Pat, do you have a drinking problem? They don't tell me I have a drinking problem. They're asking me the question, do I have a drinking problem? And then they ask me a couple questions. And the first thing they ask me is, did this happen to you? So it invites me to consider what's going on, to become convinced, do I have a drinking problem? To become convinced that somebody else besides me had the same things happening to them. And then it asks the most important question, the more importantly, Pat, did you feel like us? Did you feel broken and ripped apart, dislocated, fractured? Did you feel a sense of absolute impending doom? Did you feel a sense of quicksand stretched out in every direction in your life, that everywhere you tried to grab hold of some kind of solid foundation to get your life squared out, to finally quit hurting the people that you love, to try to get back the people that you love that will no longer talk to you? Pat, do you feel like you have no answer? Pat, do you feel like bitterness and anger and resentment and fear is consuming your very heart? That there's a darkness that you can't even put a word to that goes so deep. And that the things that you do honestly baffle you because you can't make rhyme or reason out of why you keep doing what it is that you keep doing. And people who are logical, people who are loving of you say, Pat, why do you keep doing? Why do you keep acting? Why do you keep being that way? And if I get honest with myself as I'm reading this book, and start becoming being convinced, I don't know. I can't make sense out of why I am the way I am. I can't get there. And then thankfully, it's exposing the raw nerve endings in my life, and it's very uncomfortable. Step one experience is very uncomfortable. But it says in the preface before it takes me on this voyage of step one, it says, Pat, hang in there, buddy. We love you. And what we're going to offer you is a question. Do you think that this program can work for you also? Do you think it's possible that what we've outlined in this big book can actually work in your life? I don't know about you guys, but I was out of hope. I'd given up on giving up. I'd given up on surrendering to surrender. I'd given up on intellectualizing my disease. I'd given up on all the treatment plans. I'd given up on all the counselors. I'd given up on all the psychologists. I'd given up on all the psychiatrists. I'd given up on all the marriage and family therapy persons all of my life. I didn't have any answers. And this big book simply says to me, in no uncertain terms, we think we have a way out. Why don't you take a read with us? And why don't you see if it's not your truth also? So it gives me a gentle push to go into step one. And here's my step one experience. I get Bill's story. And for 8 pages, Bill tells me about the insanity and the terror and the hopelessness and the destructiveness and the turmoil of step one. of his powerlessness. He had no way out. He spends 8 pages explaining his step 1 experience. And then he spends 4 pages of the solution explaining his step 2 experience. Page 9, 10, 11, 12, and the top of 13 are actually step 2. And so he's spending the majority of his story, 13 of his 16 pages, talking about 2 steps, step 1 and step 2. Because if I'm not convinced of the disease, steps 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are not going to make any sense. I don't care. In fact, the big book is so boldly worded that in the original text it said, listen, if you get to the end of step 2 and you're not convinced of the ABCs, which I bet Young will probably go into, then why don't you reread this book, Pat, one more time? We are begging you to read it one more time. And son, if you're still not convinced, you might as well throw the book away because it's just not going to matter. So I go into my step 1 experience. My step 1 experience, folks, see if you can identify. It starts out with the physical allergy. Bill's story goes into this physical allergy. He can't stop. And when he drinks, he can't control it. And then when we get into there is a solution up to page 23, it's talking about this physical allergy. And succinctly put, when I take in the alcohol, I can't decide when to stop. I can't decide. I don't know if I'm going to be drinking for a couple hours. I don't know if it'll be a couple days. I don't know if I'm going to be there. I don't know if it's going to be 3 or 4 drinks or it's going to be enough to put me into alcoholic poisoning and have to go to the hospital. I don't know. I have no control. And it's weird and it's scary because it's the first indicator that, Pat, maybe you don't have as much power over this disease than you think. And Pat, we're going to call it a disease. And what you're suffering from is a lack of power. In the first place, you're suffering from this lack of power is the physical allergic reaction to the drink. Dr. Silkworth said, listen, Pat, I got news for you. You are a unicorn. And there's no making you into a regular animal. You're a unicorn for the rest of your life. You have a physical reaction to alcohol that no normal person does. When you take a drink in, Pat, you cannot control how many you have. And we've tried everything we know in medical science to create a boundary, to create a barrier, to create a way for you to do it, and we can't find it. The only solution we have for you is entire abstinence from drinking ever again. Wouldn't that be great? Just don't drink. Just don't do it. But Pat, you got another problem. Dr. Silkworth alludes to this. The second thing, so I have no power over the control feature of my disease. I can't control the number of drinks I have. Well, the second thing, the mental obsession, I don't have any control over, I don't have any power over choice. Folks, I lost my first wife over drinking. I lost my second wife over drinking. My 3 children never wanted to speak to me again because of drinking. My 2 business partners kicked me out of the company because of my drinking. I had clients that no longer wanted to work with me because they couldn't trust me because of my drinking. I had every good reason in the world for the last 11 years of my searching to never pick up a drink, because I knew when I picked up a drink, I didn't show up to the conferences I was supposed to speak at. I would be gone, missing in action for 4 and 5 days. When I did show up, I had pants that were stained with my own human urine. I had filthy shirts on, and I didn't know how it happened. I had no control. And so I had every reason in the world. I had fear motivating me not to pick up the drink. I had self-knowledge about my lack of control motivating me not to pick up the drink. I had self-determination in every other area of my life that says, Pat, don't pick up the drink. And against all odds, I picked up the drink. I remember one time, and I'll go on after this, my second wife, who was a drinker, hard drinker, but not an alcoholic. Her mom and dad both died of alcoholism, so I thought I got somebody just like me. It was great. She had a meeting with the boss's boss in her career path, and it was a super important dinner invitation. She looked at me with pleading eyes and said, Pat, we're going over to my boss's house, super rich, super wealthy house, and there's going to be a lot of really important people from my company there. And Pat, the only thing I ask is you just don't drink. Please, please, please. If you love me, do not drink. You will destroy the evening. And I've been working for 6 months on this opportunity. Honey, I got this. I promise to God himself, I will not drink. And folks, I meant it with every fiber in my body. I loved my second wife. I did not want to harm her. I wanted to show up with integrity. I wanted to show up as a normal guy and just do normal, whatever you do at a normal cocktail party, dinner party you're supposed to do. I've never done it, so I'm sort of a theory about that kind of thing. And I walk in the kitchen, and they have some Tanqueray on the bar, or they had some Grey Goose on the bar. I can't remember what it was. And I thought, I think I'll just have one of those to slam it down just to take the edge off. The next thing I know is my wife in tears and 2 other gentlemen that I didn't know were dragging me out of the owner's home's master bedroom, who I had completely obliterated their bathroom. And I had alcoholic poisoning, and they're taking me out to the car and hopefully to get me home before whatever else was next. And I remember my wife talked to me the next day, says, the only thing I ask you to do is not drink. The only thing I ask is for you to not drink one stinking night. And I couldn't pull it off, guys. And I looked at her and I said, I didn't mean to drink. And a normal person hearing that statement, it doesn't make sense. It's insane. And that's the part of the mental obsession that starts to dawn on me through more about alcoholism, is that I'm virtually insane when it comes to alcohol. I can't stay away from it. I cannot control the power of choice. And so if that's not bad enough, when I get over to page 64 of the big book, and that's beyond what we're talking about right here, right now, it says this: hey, Pat, when the spiritual malady is overcome, you're going to straighten out mentally and physically. Read between the lines, Pat. If you don't overcome the spiritual malady, you're never going to straighten out mentally, and you're never going to straighten out physically. And I'm starting to ask myself, because Dr. Young says a weird thing in the middle of his story. He says, hey, Pat, the reason you drink is because you enjoy the effects of it, but if you don't have it in your system, you're restless. You are not at peace. You're irritable. You're easily agitated, and you are discontent. Nothing but nothing satisfies you. And unless you get that drink in your system again, all bets are off. And so read between the lines. If I don't have a solution that's deeper and stronger and bigger than my drink, I will drink again. In fact, the step 1 experience is the truth. I drink. The step 1 experience, the truth, is not, I can never drink again. The step 1 experience is, I absolutely will drink again. In fact, that is my experience, and it's on a constant, growing, progressively worse basis. I will always find the drink. I will always find a way to have a mental blank spot. I will always find a way to completely destroy people I love because I pick up that drink. And I can't stop it. And so in We Agnostics, more about alcoholism with the Jaywalker and Fred and Jim and Carpet Slipper Man, they're basically telling me I am insane. I cannot manage my mental state regarding the drink. And more about, in We Agnostics, it tells me, oh, Pat, have we convinced you? Are you convinced that you have the physical allergy? Have you compared your experience to ours? Are you having the same feelings around it that we do? Yes, yes. Pat, are you convinced now that you have the mental obsession, that you find every reason not to drink and you drink against yourself? You absolutely have no defense against the first drink, and you absolutely pick it up every single time. Are you convinced? Yes. Hard one now, Pat. Listen closely. Are you convinced you're insane? That's a bridge too far. I don't think so. Not yet, I don't. I don't know. I got a little bit of fight left in me. I'm Irish. I fight. We Agnostics is my chapter. Pat, what you're attempting to do, you have great philosophical convictions. You have a great moral code. You know what's right and wrong, and you want to do them. But Pat, you don't have the power to pull it off. You suffer from a lack of power at depth. You don't even know delusionally in the fear that's in the depths of your soul what you are being motivated by to do. It is a malady that is carnivorous, that is chewing up your soul and is carving your life into separation and is breaking you into every bone in your body being destroyed. And you don't know it. Oh, you think you have enough power to pull this off. And you don't. Lack of power, Pat, is your dilemma. You got to find a power by which you can live. And that power better be bigger than you. And We Agnostics goes through this incredible adventure of asking me to consider, could I pull off living a spiritual way of life with Pat's power? Oh, so Book, you're telling me that the solution is to think about God or think about some really spiritual thing so that I could finally just sort of pull off life and live happily ever after. I think that sounds pretty good. Let me try that. I'll do it with some Spirit of the Universe incantations. I'll do it with some nature walks. I'll do it with some kumbaya at the beach. I'm going to do it all sorts of places. And what I find is that I still suffer from a lack of power. And folks, that's a dilemma. Roland Hazard ran into that with Carl Jung. Well, Dr. Jung, you tell me that I'm hopeless. I have to be locked up. I'll go insane or I'm going to die. Bill Wilson, that's a dilemma. Dr. Silkworth, you tell me that I'm going to be locked up, go insane, or going to die. Roland Hazard says, Dr. Jung, you say only a vital spiritual experience is going to do the trick. Well, I believe in God. In fact, I am an elder at the Episcopal Church back in the East Coast, don't you know? And Dr. Jung loved him enough to say the truth. Oh, Roland, son, don't you understand how deep your poison in your soul is? What you have is a simple belief, but no experience with God. And it's going to kill you. If you don't get a vital spiritual experience, you're going to die. You're going to die, Roland. And oh, by the way, newsflash, I do not have the power to pull it off. Dr. Silkworth to Bill, oh, Bill, newsflash, I don't have the power to apply the powers of good to your problem. Oh, newsflash, Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, we don't have the power to fix you, Pat. Only God does. Because see, Pat, you think your problem's alcohol and that was your solution. Pat, your problem is a spiritually poisoned soul. And there's no way of extracting the poison except for by the power of God. And so in Roland Hazard's story on page 28, God, I love this part. I'm so desperate. so desperate. I want the nightmare to stop. I just want the voices to stop. I can't get there. And Roland says, I'm desperate as a man drowning. And the loving and powerful hand of God stretched out to me and grasped my hand and pulled me out of the darkness. That's what we need. Pat, are you convinced now that's what you need? See, we need a powerful God that could deal with the things that are killing me. But we need a loving God that's concerned with me enough that wants to come across the universe itself and come into my very life and say, I wait at your door and I'm knocking. Pat, 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 open the door and I will come in. And when I come in, I will transform your life. Pat, are you convinced you need me? So the spiritual malady in this conversation in We Agnostics takes me to a crescendo. It starts out with this cornerstone decision. Pat, are you willing to believe that there's a God out there that loves you enough to do some God stuff in your life? And I begin to say yes because I have absolutely nowhere else to go because I am convinced of my step one experience. And then it tells me a reassuring thing. Listen, it's not going to be you, Pat, that invents God in your life. You're not going to create God, Pat. God doesn't need to be created. God is God. You just need to accept and move towards God. And we get to this turning point. Pat, are you convinced that you can't go in your own direction anymore? Are you convinced that rebellion against the living God of the universe is killing you? That you living only for yourself and your ways, that all you're producing through step 3 is confusion, not harmony, that you're breaking lives wide open, that you're killing sweet relationships, that you're destroying people's hearts. Are you convinced that the living God of the universe is the answer? And here's the good news. You've got to find God because he's the only one that has all the power to deal with a cunning, baffling, and powerful disease. It's too much for you. Are you convinced? And here's the good news. God's going to do God stuff in you, Pat. All you have to do is the keystone decision, which is simply quit playing God. Are you willing to quit playing God in your life? Or do you like your results so much you want to keep it up for another 5 or 10 years? Thank you very much. God's going to come in, and I'm going to finish with this, Tamara. This is perfect timing. God's going to come in, folks, for each one of us, and God did in my life, because I was 100% against God. I was not neutral about God. I was anti-God when I came in these rooms. And through these 12 steps and through this program of recovery and through turning statements into questions and doing what was outlined in preface to see if my experience lined up, I have experienced a vital spiritual experience. And today, the consciousness of the presence of God is the most important relationship I have. God is my Father. He's given me identity and purpose. God is my director. On a daily basis, I could seek guidance in any tricky situation, any kind of overwhelming power problem, any kind of stress event, any kind of financial thing, any kind of relationship problem. I could seek God's advice, and God's given me a purpose. I really exist now to be God's intelligent agent, his spearhead of his ever-advancing creation, because my real purpose is to be a maximum service to God and my fellows. And he's going to also be my principal. I don't have to represent me anymore. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to be a stage character. I don't have to have you represent me. And he's my employer. He takes care of my needs, and he's my creator, God. And before time began, God called me to have fellowship and relationship with him. And he is begging across eternity, oh, Pat, come near. Oh, come near, because I love you. I've always been in love with you, and I will never stop being in love with you. When you're asleep, I'm at the edge of your bed, waiting for you to wake up so we can fellowship. I love you guys.
Young Al is from Scarborough in the United Kingdom. His home group is As Bill Sees It, and he will be speaking on being convinced for 30 minutes. Young, thank you for participating in your recovery today and blessing us with your presence. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Celine. Thank you, everyone, for your service. Hi, everyone. My name's Young. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. Thank you so much, Pat. I didn't realise we were almost brothers. I've got a grandfather who's Irish as well, as you can obviously see. So I'm that classic Irish Korean mix. No wonder I'm an alcoholic. That was beautiful. It was like a beautiful song, Pat. I was enthralled in the words of God, in the words of the Spirit that was coming out of your mouth. And I've been feeling really ill today, really sick. And in that moment, I'm just really tuned in to the Spirit. And what I was thinking when you were talking, well, many things. I was trying to clear my mind, but I wasn't doing a very good job. When you said this is like a beautiful love story, absolutely. And to those new guys in, I had no idea what was coming. When what Pat talked about, when I understood that I was doomed, when I understood there was nothing left for me but this strange thing you guys were offering, and I fought against it for 10 painful years, in and out of the rooms, detox, hospital, rehab, burning my life to the ground again and again and again. And never once did I come into the room. It's very interesting, isn't it, how my mind seemed to always fight against goodness, seemed to fight against the thing that would pull me out of hell. I never once walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, looked at those 12 steps and said, do you know what? God seems a really good idea. That's what I need. But that was exactly what I needed, because I was dying. They used to call me the Walking Dead. My eyes were stony. I was like a wounded animal. And the first meetings I was in a Salvation Army place. People would come and try and hug me, and I'd frown at them and say, get away from me, man. You know, that's what I was. Well, that wasn't what I was. That was the shell of me. Because when we look at the big book and, I find out that selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of my trouble, but that's not the root of me. The root of me is spirit and love and peace and goodness. But I've just been in the wilderness for so long. And when I started to wake up through these beautiful 12 steps, it was almost like I felt like I was waking up after 100-year slumber in a dark forest. That's what I felt like. And being convinced, that's what we're talking about. The difference was this time, I was in yet another psychiatric unit. And I went into another treatment centre, and I knew I was going to drink again. That was the difference. All the other places I've been into, treatment centres, my mind always convinced me that I wasn't going to drink again. And perhaps I just got this moment's grace. Like you said it, Pat, I stopped trying. I stopped trying to surrender, because the last 10 years, and I think you said this, Pat, of my drinking, I didn't want to drink. I didn't know why I keep burning my life to the ground. People saying, Young, what are you doing? Why have you done this again? I don't know. And I hate myself for it. And I live on the misery go round. And I wake up just wanting to die. And I don't know what's wrong with me. I didn't know I was dealing with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. I didn't know I was dealing with my mind, cunning, baffling, powerful. I didn't know I was dealing with my agnosticism, cunning, baffling, powerful. I can't see the truth from the false. The truth is, today, this moment is absolute perfection. That is the truth. But my mind will always try and convince me otherwise. But I don't know anything when I come in. I don't know much today either. All I know is I'm broken. I can't do this. And I've got no more fight left in me. And that place of desperation, those words from Bill's story, how dark it is before the dawn, I couldn't bring into words how dark it felt before the dawn. But what I can remember, and look, I was a man who thought he was an atheist or agnostic. I didn't really know. All I know is, in that last psychiatric unit, I fell to my knees and I said, please help me. Like, what? Where did that come from? That did not come from my mind. That come from somewhere else. And me and Donna talk about this. I don't even know if I something surrendered me, I think. And I think I got a moment's opportunity to jump through that. And I've just opened my book at page 57. And it says, what is this but a miracle of healing? Absolute miracle. We are miracles. Miracle of healing. My soul has been healed from the broken, wounded little child, 43-year-old child, when I came into the rooms. And my sobriety date is the 24th of December 2018. Through the grace of a loving God that was always there, that I had no idea was just saying, child, wake up, wake up. When I look back, evidence of God was all around me, but my eyes were so darkened by the darkness, by the lower power of existence that I was in for decades. I had no idea until I started waking up. What is this but a miracle of healing? And then it says, circumstances made me willing to believe. That what Pat described beautifully, the circumstances of my brokenness, of my alcoholism, knowing there's nothing I can do about this. I remember in an early meeting, there was one of these militant guys, the ones, big books, the ones I used to stay away from for all those years. I used to go around with the people like me, and he said, Young, there's nothing you can do about this. And I think I replied to him, who the do you think you're talking to? Of course there's something because it doesn't make sense to my mind. The problem, where the problem centers, it doesn't make sense that I can't do anything about this. It does not make any sense. And what I do know today, I even need a lot of God and a lot of nurturing and reliance, or a lot of alcohol. There's no half measures. There's no middle of the road solution for someone like me, because I'm a mad dog drinker. And without help, life itself is too much for me. Without help, I look through the eyes of my defects of character. Without help, I practice defects of character in all my affairs, and I blame and I demand and I need. But you guys helped me when you guided me. And the people that I work with, and they helped me more than I helped them. They helped to soften my heart. They helped me to see the truth. They helped me to see what courage looks like, and integrity and warmth, all the things that were lacking for my life for so long. And man, I didn't know what was going to happen when I came in here. I think about that step-free prayer. When I went through the second time, when I went through the steps with Ali, and he said, right, have 48 hours to think about this decision. And if you don't want to make it, we'll go our separate ways. And I said, what do you mean? I'm ready. No, you're making a decision to turn your life to God. This is not something to be taken lightly. And I think about the step-free prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build me and do with me as thou wilt. I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to demand anything, that I become anything, that I'm going to lay down in the river of life and see where it takes me. And I think about that beautiful Thomas Merton prayer, and it says something like, I don't know, God, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. And that's the beauty today. I don't know where I'm going. That's the gift, that I don't know. Because when I look back at the last 7 years of my life, if I tried to get involved, man, it would be like me watching Michelangelo, or a great artist doing a masterpiece. You use the word masterpiece a lot, Pat. I love that, masterpiece. And me going, oh no, put a little bit there, put a little bit there. So it was through the brokenness that some sunlight was able to come out. Some sunlight that was always in there. And then, and like you said, Pat, when someone guided me through those first chapters that were concentrating on step one, I was like a nodding dog. Oh my goodness me. That That makes sense. That, and that. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad, I want to be a good dad. I want to have a job. I want to be a normal human being. That's why I can't be. Because I've got a chain around my neck that prevents me. Lack of power is my dilemma. And I shared this morning on our sponsee group. This is not a bridge to normal living. Normal living for humans is greed, anger, fighting, wanting power, wanting prestige, being blocked off from God. This is a bridge out of normal living. We have an unfair advantage. Doesn't make me better or worse than anyone else. But wow, look at the gift. And I only come in here to stop drinking. And then it keeps unfolding and it keeps unfolding. And as I give to the world, so the world gives to me. That is mind-blowing. I only come into Alcoholics Anonymous because it was the last house on the block. Because I didn't want to relapse anymore. I didn't want to leave my kids for months on end anymore. And what is it? What I thought was a flimsy reed. I'm like, have you got anything else apart from God? Come on, it must be something more solid. More solid than God? What? Turns out to be the powerful and loving hand of God. The word that I couldn't even say the word God for my first year. That's how much my mind still wants to argue with reality. Because the reality is God. The reality is God. But my mind, my ego, what does Bill call it? The icy intellectual mountain. The icy intellectual mountain of my ego wants logic. It wants reason. It wants control. I'm taking this one from you, Donna, and it doesn't want to give up the crown. It doesn't. It doesn't want to give up the crown. When did I become convinced? Well, when there was nowhere else for me to go. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the book. Convinced that I'm an alcoholic. Because I was in the rooms for years not knowing what an alcoholic was. I knew I drank too much. I didn't know anything about the phenomenon of craving or the mental obsession that would always take me back against my will, against my best wishes. And think about this, for any newcomers on here especially. My illness was stronger than my instinct for survival. My very instinct to survive is not strong enough. That is crazy. I wouldn't continue to jump in front of a truck or jump into the fire again and again and again because I have an instinct of survival that will protect me. But when it comes to alcohol, I was strangely insane. So I'm going to need something more powerful than that. I'm going to need something even more powerful than the love that I have for my children. And that's a strong power. Because they could never keep me sober. And like Pat said at the end of his share, God today is the most important part of my life. I put it before everything because it's only when I'm living this spiritual walk, when I have softness in my heart, when the external things just come as a byproduct of that. And I was in meditation recently, and what came to me was, God, help me get deeper into life so I become less attached to it. Because it was those worldly clamours that keep me blocked from the sunlight of the Spirit. The worship of money and people and places and things. Help me become less attached to that. And so I was convinced that I was an alcoholic. I understand what that means. And also, unless life goes my way, I'm not okay. I learnt that also. I can't control my emotional nature. I'm prone to misery and depression and all those things that I saw on this page 52. It was mind-blowing. It still is. It still is. It's like, oh, wow. And probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. I do not have the power to change myself. What's that bit in the book? I had moral and philosophical convictions galore. I have values. I have morals. I can't live up to them, even though I really want to live up to them. And it baffles me why I can't. I go this way, this goes this way. There's this real, I'm like out of alignment with something, but I don't quite know what it is yet because I'm still very asleep. And here's the big one, that God could and would if. It's such a powerful word for me, the if he was sought. And I believe in the original manuscript, it said can and will. Now, I know, I didn't know that then. I know this today. God can and will. Absolutely. Absolutely. But what helped to convince me? Because I was convinced that I was broken. I was convinced that I was going to drink again. I was convinced there was nothing I could do about this. But yet, the God idea. I'll tell a little story of what happened. I stopped resisting. I stopped fighting. I stopped arguing. And you know, when people said, oh, go and pick up that newcomer, even though I was a newcomer, go and make the tea, because we love tea in the UK. I just did it without arguing for the first time ever. And then what happened even before that, which blew my mind. When I used to run out there on the streets, doing what I used to do, there was me and this kid called Sid. A kid called Sid. Right? And Sid was became like my Ebby Thatcher, right? Sid looked smashed to pieces, bones sticking out of his cheeks. I mean, I did as well, but I would look at Sid and say, I would never be that messed up. Never. If I ever get like Sid, we went our separate ways. And one day I'm in another detox facility. In comes Alcoholics Anonymous. Hospitals and institutions. Who's sat there, fresh face and glowing, with a look about his eyes that it was Sid. My first question is, what the has happened to you? And he said, I found God. And I said, oh, oh. And I said, what do you mean, Sid? And he showed me this beautiful book. And he said, I just followed this guy and these instructions, and something's happened to me, young. And I believed him. Because you can't fake authenticity. You can't fake God. He was walking in the sunlight of the Spirit, and I felt his glow and his eyes. Well, windows to the world, or windows to the soul, we say, don't we? Definitely. There was something about his eyes that I didn't understand. And it reminds me of that bit on page 58 where it says, if you've decided you want what we have, I wanted what this kid had, and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. Now, I thought that it was sobriety. I didn't understand in that moment that it was a spiritual life, a life of love, a life of service, a life of serving others and not thinking about yourself so much. I didn't know that at the moment, but I was convinced that this guy had something that I wanted. I was convinced. And then when I started going to those meetings and I saw some guys, I was convinced. Because I was in and out for so long, I'm a great expert in how not to do recovery. But I always share this. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we have 100% success rate for those who come all the way in and live a spiritual way of life, help others, trust God, clean house, help others. They don't go out. And what used to happen to me, I would go in and go out and go in and go out, because I wasn't doing anything but going in. And don't get me wrong, they're a part of my program, of course. But what I started to notice each time I'd go back in, looking a bit skinnier and a bit greyer, the people that was still there was just a handful of people. The ones with the big books, the ones talking about God, the ones talking about sponsoring others, the ones doing service, they were always still there. And the other people were nowhere to be seen. And so it was you that started to convince me by your walk, by the demonstration of your kindness. And then as I started guiding through this big book, I'm matching my experience. And the step 2 for me was maybe. And my ears start to open and my heart starts to soften. And perhaps God just flows a bit of grace into me and says, come on then, let's have it. I've been waiting for you for a long time. I think it was now or never. I was convinced I was going to die. I would have, and I think Pat talked about this, I would have welcomed death, because for the last 2 years of my drinking, I'd wake up, well, I'd come to, and I'd be like, you know, those 4 horsemen, terror, bewilderment, frustration and despair. And I'd think, I just want to go out of this world. I don't want to be here anymore. I thought life was something to be endured, not something to embrace, and a gift and an invitation and a beautiful mystery. I couldn't see that. So thank God I started to be convinced, and today I don't need any more convincing because God keeps showing up in my life. The spiritual breadcrumbs are just laid at my feet if I'm awake. God, please help me see the truth. I love that in that set aside prayer, because if I can see the truth, then what's the problem? There's nothing I need to be or become if I can see the truth. But I go to sleep. I do this imperfectly. I'm full of defects of character and I'm full of flaws, but that's how I grow today. Sometimes I grow by embracing my defects, going through the pain, and they remind me how much I need God, how much I need Spirit, how much I need to go and help someone. Without help, it's too much for us. So what a beautiful thing to have landed in the greatest show on earth with other broken souls like me who hold out their hand and place my hand in the hand of God. What? Like, it blows my mind, because without help, I can't see the truth. Without help, life seems spiky. Without help, I can't see the miracle of this moment. Without help, I don't want to help you. I want to help me. And when I help me, I'm in pain. I'm in the bondage of myself. I'm still in that prison. I get rocketed into the lower power of existence. And I remember the first time I heard that phrase, rocketed into a 4th dimension. And I thought, whoa, rocket ships. But the way someone said it to me, he said, Young, you can come in here and have this grey, dreary, yeah, I'm sober, or you can be rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence. And when he said it, I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't understand the words, but I felt the Spirit. Because that's what kept happening to me in my early meetings. I didn't know what you were saying, but I could feel something that was otherworldly. In fact, it just seemed like that to me. And I don't know why this has just come to me. From page 59, where it says, without help, it's too much for us. But there is one. There is one. There is one. 1 and 1 is 1. We all come from one. Whatever our belief system is, we all come from one. We were created. This was created, and we all come from that. But yet I've been born into a world that tries to convince me this isn't so. No wonder I found it so hard to get out of that hell. Perhaps. There is one who has all power. And whenever I read this bit, I think about the elder who first read me this part. An elderly gentleman, no longer with us, called Oxygen Richard. Don't you just love the names we get in AA? Oxygen Richard. He had some oxygen, he was a beautiful soul, but it was one of these grumpy old timers that I was scared of, but something drew me towards him. That kept happening. These wise old elephants. and I don't mean that's not disrespectful, by the way, just drew me towards it. And he said, Young, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. And he smashed his hand on this table, and it almost felt like the table started wobbling. And I thought, this is serious. He is just in. I want what this guy's got. So thank you, Oxygen Richard. Thank you to all the elders who came before me and who continue to put light on this path, to inspire a broken soul like me who thought his life was over, whose children didn't see him, who didn't work, who had one bag of clothes, who wanted to die. I can't express my gratitude enough. But hopefully I'll get another chance tomorrow to do that. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to talk. Thank you.